Yo, everybody. Welcome to Off Panel, a weekly interview podcast about all things comics brought to you by Sketch.com. I'm your host, David Harper, and this week's guest is the creative team behind comics like Avengers Unlimited, I Am Iron Man, and the just-released Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods at Oni Press. It's Murewa Ayodele and Dotun Akande. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You guys nailed it.
And that was really nice with...
That was a very nice intro. That was a very nice.
Okay, that was really nice with the pronunciation.
We're all killing it. I was just going to compliment you two, because normally when I have two guests on,
that was nice.
The intro is always two people speaking at once. It's like, thanks for having us on. And you two, you know what you're doing.
I was expecting that too.
Well, I do want to start. We're recording this on Wednesday, April 3rd. It is a big day for you. It's the release of your new book. How are you two doing?
Yeah.
It's been a tough week.
Why?
Firstly, emotionally, because some of the sad comic book news and stuff like that.
Right.
Towards the launch of the book, you get a lot of interviews, a lot of messages sent and things like that. So, and we are like super busy right now. Dotun is still like super busy with the artwork for subsequent issues. I'm busy with some scripts and some other projects and everything. But yeah, it's been good but stressful.
What about you, Dotun? Same?
Yeah, kind of. But I was on X some hours ago and I got to see some very interesting tweets and yeah, that kind of lifted my spirits. And I'm pretty excited about the things I'm hearing about the book. So yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, that's been an upload.
I do think that's one of the interesting things about this is you have this new launch, but honestly, it's like a lot of times, you know, you're so busy working on the next script or working on the next issue, drawing it, or not the next issue. It's probably a couple issues down. I don't know where you're at in it. And it's almost like you don't have time to like celebrate to some degree. It's like you don't really have time to take to yourself and just take a victory lap of like, we did this, people are receiving it well. I don't know. It's kind of interesting how, I mean, it's not just comics, I guess, but I mean, comics in specific, it's such a time consuming job that you're like, cool, we did this, move on to whatever we're working on next. Is that the case?
Yeah, pretty. That's the case most times. Excitement from reading what people say. We've been warned to not read this thing because sometimes you have some negative comments and stuff. But mostly it has been good stuff. I like to interact with people online from time to time. And I get excited sometimes when I hear people who do not share the same thought about myself say things that I wouldn't have been expecting. So I feel like, we've done a great job here and we're able to communicate some of the things we hoped we were able to put in the books and stuff like that. So yeah, sometimes I'm back to work and I'm happy, I'm smiling because, okay, I've read some feedback and mostly nice, some really terrible, some racist, which is fine, which is normal. Yeah. Well, yeah, I get to just feel, okay, on to the next thing, but I'm happy the previous thing is still fresh in people's minds and they are receiving it well.
Yeah.
And I always see it as an opportunity to learn. So like Dotun said, we're based in Nigeria, we speak different languages, and sometimes you hear how they were able to interpret our own words and how we represent things visually. And sometimes they get it 100% and you're so excited. It feels really, really good that they were able to pick what you're saying despite the cultural differences. And sometimes when there are certain types of misinterpretations, you have this realization that, okay, maybe I can do this better in another project or the next issue. So it's always an opportunity for us to learn. Even when we get negative comments, it's always an opportunity to learn. And yeah, so we are more than open to listen to feedback.
I do think it's interesting. A lot of times people will say something about how the reader is the final collaborator in comics and how it's like the interpretation matters to some degree. Sometimes you don't have to listen to all of the final readers. They're not always the best guides. I know I had to learn that in the process. It's just like when I do my stuff, and I'm just like, sometimes people just don't really, it's like, I've had people be like, did you mention this in one of your articles? And I'm like, it is literally in the first paragraph. What are we doing here, guys? Come on. But yeah, I mean, that's a tricky thing, though, is trying to figure out what's worth valuing versus what's not really worth listening to be honest.
Yeah, it's more difficult with Marvel projects than indie projects. For some reason, I think people are more open to indie projects. They want to know about your voice. But when it's on Marvel projects, that's when you get a lot of those feedback. There are some that have biases already for the character. You don't like the character, you're buying the book, and you're already like pretty much upset. Some are upset because of what they've assumed. I think the first review we got from Iron Man was very good, but the comments on that was like talking about how we're diversity hires and stuff. They've not even published anything. And it's just so funny because I was like, dude, we've been working for like 5 years before this book came out.
Right.
It's just not in the American industry. So different. So there's some that's you can understand where it's coming from, that this person just have their own personal biases, and sometimes it hurts, but you learn to just shake it off. Like it says nothing about the work. And many times the bad reviews come first. So if you can wait it out, you start getting the good reviews towards the end. Like there are lots of good reviews on I Am Iron Man that we're getting this year, like basically 1 year exactly after it was released. I think on Reddit they did Iron Man awards. We got a few awards like best Iron Man story and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think we could do with a little bit of kindness. I sometimes think about how we deal with IPs and established characters as though we're playing with toys in the playground. Like, I don't think you should feel like or someone as the creator has made a permanent mark on a character. We're just having it for a while and giving it back to the next person. And I remember growing up, sometimes in school then, maybe we all wanted to play with He-Man and we had only 5 for our class. So the teacher would come and give us maybe 4 because they, envisaged that we're going to rip his head apart or something. So keep 1 in the store, give us 4, and we'll take turns, we'll take turns. We learn to take turns and appreciate, the time we have with these things, and, oh, this is what your He-Man can do. And if it ends up in someone else's hands and they dress him up into something funny, nobody's mad. But like, why are you doing that? Okay, that's your turn. When I have my turn, I'm going to do it my way. Or if I'm in this group of people that have their turn with this toy, okay, I'm going to have this fantasy with them as well. So I think, terrible analogy, but I think you get the point.
Oh, yeah.
I think, yeah. So sometimes I see things that I don't really like. Growing up, I think Flash was my favorite character. Not so anymore today, because I don't like how, things have changed. But I'm not mad at nobody. I just know that, okay, that is your creative, directing or ideas or whatever. And that's fine. That's fine. I wish I had, something to say about Flash, but I don't. And I've seen someone do something really nice. And to me, I just held on to that as my Flash, as my iteration. Every other thing, just fine. You people can do whatever you want to do with the toy. That's what I think. It's not really that big of a deal the way we go crazy online about, oh, this guy has destroyed Spider-Man. Nah, see, I haven't done much more.
Yeah, I mean, there have been people who have used the toy box idea to me before. It's like you take the toys out and you put them back in when they're done, and somebody else starts playing with them afterwards. And that's it. But you brought up the Flash. I have to, for first-time guests, I like to go back to the beginning. And you brought up the Flash as a big thing for you. I know animation was big for the two of you, too. Like, you were big on, like, Samurai Jack and Batman Beyond and things like that. But how did you first get into comics as readers? Was there anything in particular that appealed to you about the medium when you first started digging into it?
I got into comics early-ish, but not too early. And it was through like Nigerian comics where there are these comics called Super Strikers, where it's a really popular comic books where it's about a team that plays soccer. And I'm not really big on soccer, so I never really got into them. So years go by, you watch animation and stuff. And then I really, really got interested in superheroes. And I was like, okay, let me dig into these comics. And I think the first comic I remember reading and by taking this deliberate action to search it out was Batman by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. And at the time, which is a little embarrassing to say, I was like, man, this artwork is terrible. Who is this guy drawing all sketchy stuff? This is terrible. Like, all the characters just look wrong. And why can't the lines? Because I was expecting smooth lines like you see in animation. And all these gritty artwork that as veteran comic readers will enjoy. As a new reader, I was like, this is just too sketchy. Why is everything so dark in color and everything? And I just stopped. I stopped. And I kept trying to get back into it year after year. But one of the ones that really, really hooked me and made me like a Wednesday warrior was Bendis' take on Iron Man, Invincible Iron Man, and Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples' saga.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice the artwork of David Marquez and Fiona Staples, they're closer to animation style. Smooth lines, the colors, Fiona Staples and I think, is it Jason Ponso or something? I can't remember his name, but
Yeah, Justin Ponsor. Yeah.
yeah. So the colors popped. They felt very detailed, vibrant, and so those were the comics that really made me a Wednesday warrior. And gradually, I could now spread out to more quote unquote weird stuff, things like Tom King's Miracle, Mr. Miracle, and things like that. So that's how I became like steeped in comics, American comics to be precise.
Yeah, we kind of share similar stories there. Started with my interest in cartoons, animation. I'd always been drawing anyway, so I think I was making comics before I knew about comics, and I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would freeze a movie and sketch an interesting frame, and I would flip the pages to kind of make my animation. And I think someone told me, maybe my dad, I can't remember now, that why don't you tell your story instead? This is fantastic, well done, but tell your stories too. So I tried to tell a story, but it didn't make sense visually because I didn't know comics then. I was a kid anyway. Then I saw a movie. I think it was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Yeah, I was in primary school then. And then I asked my brother to help me get a comic book. I thought it was just going to be full pages of artwork and maybe like storybooks, and the next pages will be text.
Right.
And then he didn't see the Spider-Man comic book. He got made for Superboy. I think he was in this red spandex and a jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Superboy then. Yeah. I think you see where that thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was just sensory overload for me. I'm like, what? Wow, I need to get more of this. Years later, I got to secondary school. There was this student who had someone bring up comics from overseas, and we used to do this trade by barter thing. I'll have your comics for the weekend. She had Archie comics. She had Fantastic Four. So I'll get your comics for the weekend, and then I will do your biology assignments. I will illustrate everything. And we were told to illustrate. I'll do everything for her rather. And that was how I got into comics, and I was just stuck. Yeah. Superboy was my first comic.
Oh, I mean, Superboy with the jacket. That's like the most stylish version of Superboy that ever existed. Who wouldn't love that? I mean, he was kind of, the funny thing is like you look at that character and the swagger of him and like the look of him is almost like a manga character more than like an American comics character in some ways.
Yes.
Yes. I never thought of that yet.
It's interesting listening to the two of you when you're talking about it. Do you feel like animation in varying forms has continued to affect like the way you look at comics going forward? Because like Murewa, you're very much specifically talking about like your appeal is like the art styles that kind of are more reminiscent of animation. And I do think that's one of the things that's interesting about the two of you is you're coming from the background where you have like that as like a primary influence, but also you're coming from Nigeria. So you have like a different, you don't come in like a lot of American creators, I feel like they're raised on like the same kind of food, if that makes sense. And they're always like ingesting. And so when it comes out, it's kind of, I don't want to say the same, but it comes out similar. But like reading something like Akogun, it's just, it has a different feel to it in a lot of different ways. And it feels very unique to the two of you. Do you feel like those roots changed you into different creators than like, if you've been raised somewhere else or if you'd, not watched Samurai Jack and Batman Beyond and everything coming up?
Yeah, I think it's done that a lot. Even till now, the comics I go to for influences or for inspiration are usually so different because I don't have any bias for any comics. I'm not like, oh, I'm a DC guy, I'm a Marvel guy. If a DC book if I find it interesting, I'll read it. If it's manga, I'll read it. If it's anime, if it's animation. So in my head too, when I script comics, a lot of the panels are usually landscape view, just like an animated panel. So when I script, it's almost like for storyboards. That's kind of what I see in my head. So yeah, there's that. But gradually I've been learning more about the comics language. But yeah, how I see comics, it's usually very different than how people see it, especially in coloring, even things I want in coloring. If you see I Am Iron Man, especially issue 3, where Iron Man becomes like a samurai, a lot of the color choices, a lot of the view, they feel more like an animated movie more than comic pages. They feel almost like you took a screenshot of an high budget animated movie, and that's how I see the comics in my head too when I script them and things like that. When I also in my script also feels very much like screenplays. I give camera directions, the movements, and sometimes they're like, oh, the one closest to the camera is blurry and that the farther one and stuff like that. All those are cinematic languages more than comic book languages. And it's also one of the reasons why I particularly like Junibar's work, because I think I was reading a story he did for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles where it was even using video game languages, where we're seeing the health bar of the protagonist. So we're seeing as the health bar was about to deplete before the person gets rescued. And sometimes in his balloons rather than having text would have other, like another diagram,
Intentions
like a
and
sketch.
actions.
Yeah, so like when I wanted to show how two of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were expecting different things, and it just drew them in the balloons. And we did something like that in Avengers Unlimited too. I really like that. So despite the fact that we are coming from animation influences, for comics, we are now more flexible. We can pick anything we like. Oh, I saw this thing in a video game, I really liked it. I saw this thing in a movie, I really liked it. I saw this thing in a comic book, in a manga, in comic strips, I really like it. So we can easily move from a page that's like 9-panel grid like Alan Moore and go to a double page spread like Todd McFarlane. And because we're also kind of newer to comics, all eras of comic books have the same level of importance to us. So like a lot of people that grew up in the 90s, they try as much as possible to have that 90s style. A lot of people that grew up in the 80s try to have that Alan Moore style. But for us, we like all of them equally because we enjoy all of them equally. So we can easily borrow things. So if in Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods, each chapter almost feels like it was written by a different writer because of the tone and style I use for each chapter. The first chapter is like this Samurai Jack, again, the Tartakovsky kind of thing. The second chapter is like these gods having this exchange that I could imagine maybe someone like Ickman coming up with. And then the third one is more dialogue heavy, like Brian K. Vaughan and that kind of thing. That's just how I see stories. All influences have the same volume. All voices have the same volume in my head. And I think it's helped us to be unique storytellers.
Thank you for saying Juniper, because I think Juniper is one of the greatest visual storytellers today for me.
Yes.
I really, really think he should get his flowers today. I don't have this primacy, recency bias thing that I see online. I think if you're doing amazing work, we should give you your flowers today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if we look back at Juniper's work, I think people will see how amazing he really is. The guy is amazing. So yeah, thank you for saying all that, Murewa, because you just said everything in my head. Something I've noticed also is that Murewa and I are in our families kind of just the same way. He's the last kid and the last kid, and we have like older siblings. So we kind of had this experience where even sometimes when we're gisting, when we're talking, we get to see that, the influences of the older generation has kind of found its way into our interests, and we have this acquired taste. So we have our legs in both what are we going to call our siblings generation? Not boomers, really.
I don't even know, are we millennials or not? I'm not even sure anymore.
Those different generations, right? So we kind of allow everything we see, everything they hear and talk about. Like my music choices, for instance, I have playlists from my dad's generation, my siblings' generation,
all those jazz and stuff like that.
Exactly. Sade Adu is like my favorite, but then I still like Billie Eilish and all that. So that kind of hodgepodge of everything happens the same way too with our creative choices with our comics. We love animation. We started with cartoons. We saw this African superhero in the newspapers, like you said. We saw that too. What was the name of that guy? This black superhero that we saw in the newspapers growing up. We love that guy too. So we have all those influences from all these places. And then we saw Arcane, we saw Blue Eye Samurai. Or like, this is fantastic. Oh my God. Let's put everything that we like from everywhere, from every era, and let us tell something so unique. Let us do unique things. So yeah, we have like this. I think that's why Brand K1 always speaks to us, because even in his dialogue, he might almost date his stories because of the pop culture thing that they are saying, and at the same time, they kind of sound epic or archaic, and like, how is he managing to do all this,
Yeah. I see a lot of people complaining about, oh, don't put this type of language in your comics because you date it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
anytime I read comics from the past, I don't like the ones that sound very bland, because I'm like,
Yeah.
there's no attitude to it, there's no voice to it. But ones that they speak like they used to speak then, I used to love it. Like, yeah, no, I'm gonna ring you, bucko, and stuff like that. I love those kind of comics.
I think creators are afraid of their work not being timeless.
Yeah.
So they don't add time to the work. But I think I challenge creators to sometimes date your work and achieve timelessness. I think that's the true creativity there.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Looking for the right place to read digital comics? You can find it at Omnibus. Omnibus is a modern digital comic book store and reader app carrying your favorite single issues, volumes, and omnibuses all day and date. It's just like a comic shop where you pay per book, but digital. Omnibus has even upped its game lately, adding an iPhone version of the app with Android coming very soon. That gives you more about what you love about Omnibus, but in your pocket. Looking for an ideal digital comic store, but with an excellent shopping and reading experience, one that uses novel discovery features to help fans find their next new favorite book, and one that features many of the best comics and publishers today, including publishers like Image, Boom, Dark Horse, and more? You can find that all on Omnibus. Visit the web store or download the app today at omnibus.app. And now, back to the show. I think one of the things that's interesting about this is, you brought up Junie. Junie, the thing I love about Junie is, like I've said multiple times before, Junie has more ideas per page than like a lot of entire comics do. He is just like a fire hose of pure ideas. And the thing about Junie is that when you read one of his comics, the decision he's making is the one that he feels is the right one, rather than what he thinks that like accepted structures think. Yeah, exactly. It's like he's not doing like, I'm going to do this because this is what Brian Bolland did once.
Which is what they're done.
Yeah, I'm going to do this because like this is what feels right. Did it make a ton of sense for Mobilis to have a Tribe Called Quest reference? Probably not. But at the same time, I absolutely love that part. And, it's like you can have all these little parts where it has this energy. I do think that's one of the things that's interesting about the two of you is like, I'm going to kind of yada, yada, yada a little bit of your background just because we got to get into Akogun. But you two met in college. You were both studying computer science, which I have to point out is not comic books. It's considerably different. From there, you started working together for Collectible Comics, which was at the time was you publishing digital comics together. I'm curious as to how you went from meeting as computer science students to being a writer-artist team that wants to make comics together and is making digital comics of your own creation.
Yeah, it's not so different. While I was studying computer science, I think around 300 level, 200 level, second or third year, Dotun and I were working on developing applications for the chapel and stuff like that. So while I was writing the code, it was always designing the user interface. So, and to me, code is just like writing a script. And the user interface is basically like drawing. So we've been working in that capacity for a long time.
Right.
And when I got to the final year, 400 level, and I just got my grades were sinking, and I was just frustrated with everything. I was like very serious in the chapel, but I didn't feel like I belonged anymore for some reason. And I was like, you know what? I used to write a lot of stories when I was in secondary school. I just want to get back to that. So I was writing a lot of stories. So I was always bringing them to Dotun, like, can you provide? I didn't even know he could draw that well. I knew he did graphics, and I've seen him give notes to like portrait artists in school, but I wasn't sure. So I was always coming to him with my stories and like, can you give me some graphics and stuff like that? And it was always like, look, I know you've given up on your grades, but I still want to like graduate with decent grades. So, so he provided zero artwork for me while they were in school. So, and after school, there's this compulsory like service you do for the government where you serve the government in different states in the country.
Like a paramilitary type of thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're posted to different stations, and I just kept writing this novel and things like that. Kept in touch with him. He was always still too busy. So when that 1 year service was over, he just sent a couple of pages to me, and I was like, damn, like I didn't know it was possible. I didn't even know how good he was. I was like, yeah. So, and that kind of sparked everything. Like, you know what? Let's forget all this, because it was a novel I was writing. I was going to be providing like chapter pages and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? Let's forget all this novel thing. Let's do like proper comic book and things. And that's when we started collectible comics. By that time, I was already working in the university as a senior software developer. So I got a couple of investors to drop some cash. I resigned from my work. I'm like, yeah, let's do this full time.
Yeah, I should also let people know how amazing you were, because I know you're trying to be modest, or maybe you forgot me. At the time, David, Murewa was the best programmer in the old school. But yeah, it was the best in the old school. He was called for everything. He was teaching people how to code, and his grades were thinking or had sunk completely anyway. So he was just teaching people. I didn't know much about programming or coding. And then I saw this guy teach a class one time. And I'm like, my goodness, how are you able to know this so well, to be able to teach it so well? And I learned so much in such a short time. And I'm like, this guy is truly, he knows his onion. He's everything they said he is. The legends are true. And I remember he had been troubling me about, let's tell a story together. Let's do this, let's do that. And I'm like, dude, I need to finish strong. I'm really struggling here, and I need to get out of this place with something, But then I came to the realization that if you know how to code this well, you would know how to write brilliantly.
Yeah.
I think because his code sometimes, the little I could understand, I saw some of the things he did, and I'm like, this is beyond brilliant, guy. This is amazing. And then I started imagining how his scripts would be. It would be unconventional. And it truly is. It truly was. It still is. Because sometimes I'd seen some scripts from a book I read, and I'm like, nah, Murewa will not write it this way. His structure is just crazy. And it's a testament of how really good he is as a programmer. So yeah, that's for you.
I do think it's interesting. I don't remember who it was. I think it was Ronald Wimberly I had on the podcast. And we talked about user experience when it comes to comics. And we talked about I think kind of in relation to coding to some degree. And I do think that's one of the things that's interesting about all this is coming in from a computer science background and a coding background. I don't want to say a story logic, but there's a logic to coding that there is in good comics too, where you can, if you structure it right, it all makes sense. And it's the same with comics too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how, I don't know, I'm curious as to whether or not having that computer science brain and then going into digital comics where you have like a different orientation and you're setting it up for a phone experience or a tablet experience or something like that. Did that make it harder to transition into print once the two of you did that? Because they're structured so differently. I mean, you brought that up earlier, Murewa, where it's like it is slightly different. Was that a difficult transition because of that, or was it fine?
I think there are like two questions buried in that. The first one is transitioning from programming to comics, then from digital comics to print comics. When I was programming, anytime I try to teach someone programming, it's very, very odd. The better the person's grade, the more intelligent everybody assumes that person is, the worse they are at programming. And I was only shocked why. And I noticed the reason. We have a friend of ours that is not per se good at programming, but he's the best graduating student in the entire school.
Yeah.
And anytime he's studying, he's chatting at the same time and listening to like a speech and different things. They can multitask. You see this guy like, man, this guy is like brilliant. And I think because of that, there's an issue of how to simplify things, how to break things down. People that usually succeed easily in programming are people that recognize that no matter how big a problem is, it's not about your capacity for how you can break it down. It's how you can, like, imagine you're trying to eat food and a lot of people just, because they have big mouths, they try to eat it once. But as a programmer, you're like, wait, chill. I don't have to eat everything once. Let's break it down into simpler chunks. And you keep arranging it in simpler forms to like have this whole. And that's what happened in my writing, where I break things down into simple chunks and then try to tell elaborate stories in that simple structure. And that's why when we started out, there were a lot of bad reviews, either because they felt the things were too simple, they didn't know I was bringing something big, or some people also underestimate it and I'm trying to tell a big story. So there's always that.
Also, we didn't have a name, the intro.
Oh, yeah.
So, but when we went now from digital comics to physical comics, it kind of flowed naturally. In fact, I think print comics is easier than the vertical scroll digital comics. It was the more difficult one for me to get. I had to read a lot of Law Olympus, a lot of manhwa and stuff just to get that structure. And I'm not sure how I broke it, but it worked. That was even what got the attention of Tom Brevoort. It was our digital comic, not
My Grandfather Was a God, right?
Yeah, not the print comic. So yeah, I think print comics is way easier and it was almost seamless. It was digital that was actually very, very difficult.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing, I mean, like print, it's like always the same structure. It's like there's Wally Wood's 22 panels that will always work. You can always kind of find an answer, and there's like ample evidence on how to do it. But you look at vertical scroll, and everything is different. Like everyone approaches things different. It's always fascinating to see people who are print first working in vertical scroll, because you can tell that they're kind of just jamming stuff in there that they know will eventually work in a print comic. But I did want to ask you, Dotun, when Murewa came to you and was just like, I want to do this stuff, were you already interested in becoming an artist, or is this something that an opportunity presented itself and then you just started falling in love with it, basically?
So I started out as a writer first growing up. I have so much respect for writers. And I started as a writer, I drew my comics. So and then I tried to differentiate. I tried to evolve rather from just being an artist to being a visual storyteller. So when Murewa came to me, I already had that seed in me that I was going to tell a story, and it would either be a storybook or maybe a graphic novel. And at the time, it came at the wrong time because we're still in school and our grades were really struggling. But I had so much respect for him because of his programming prowess. But he hadn't proved to me that he was an amazing writer. I was like, we'll talk about this later. And later became years later and all that. But yeah, there was that interest already. In fact, it was very tempting, but I didn't let him know because he was relentless. My goodness, he was relentless. I didn't want him to know that I was tempted. That, oh yes, it's something I want to do too. But hey, just stay away. Let us focus on what we are here for. We'll get back to it later. Yeah, I had that interest already.
That makes sense. And also, it's like, I think people forget that it's like there's always this clean delineation between writing and art. And it's like there's separate things. But art, this is kind of a funny thing to say, art is writing too. Art is storytelling. Art is you making something work in terms of story. Like one of my favorite parts from the first issue of Akogun is the sequence where Ogun takes out Obatala. Apologies if I mispronounced those. And there's the whole part where the narration of basically like he takes out this monster that, to make sure that more monsters won't come, but he took out the wrong one. And the next sequence is like the page where it's just going down in the travels of this monster trying to find. It's basically like its destiny. It's like what it was always, the long game that Obatala had in mind that Akogun did not see. And like that sequence is like perfect art as writing, where it's just I have no idea how the two of you worked, but it reads so well, and it's like the drama builds throughout it. And by the time where the little monster is saying thank you to like the woman, it's just perfect. And like, I don't know, I think
Yeah.
people kind of underrate that part about art and like the connection between writing and art and how that is storytelling. It's not just writing as storytelling.
Yeah. Murewa and I work so closely. I can even say he's almost an artist on many of these pages, because from even the descriptions on the scripts, you can see how much he's invested in how he wants the story visually told. So yeah, Murewa is good as an artist many times. But he might just not be able to visualize what he wants, but he
Put pen to paper, basically.
You guys should do an issue where you swap roles and just see what happens.
That'll be fantastic, actually. I'm sure it will be better than Tom King's covers. But you've seen Tom King's covers, yeah?
Oh yeah. Oh
The stick
yeah.
figures and everything. Yeah. Very cute stuff. I actually like them. Hey, no shade, Tom King. If you hear this, I really respect what you do. Even visually.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like sometimes I feel guilty, like taking the credit of writer, because while I'm having an outline, I call Dotun. I'm like, this is the outline. What do you think? I talk about the story. He has his input. He says, no, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. Put it here and stuff like that. Okay. So I write the script, like maybe every 5 pages or every 10 pages. I send it back to him. He gives me feedback on it and stuff like that. Like I almost feel guilty because for the first time, like in a long time, if ever, I'm working Marvel now with another artist. And
That's legal? Don't fall in love. Don't fall in love.
I didn't give you a pass.
every script, every outline, I'm still sending it to Dotun. And yeah, I'm like, dude, like, how will this work and stuff like that? And yeah, there's this sequence I'm thinking in my head, and I don't even know how to describe it to the artist. And I'm like, am I going to beg Dotun to like sketch out what is in my mind? And how do I describe this and stuff like that? So it's how we work is so close that you can't basically like say, oh, this is the addition or subtraction of someone ends and stuff. And when Dotun also like draws covers for like other projects, or even when he draws for this thing, he sends it to me, and I'm like, no, change the framing, let the camera come from behind this person and stuff like that. So it's just, yeah, it's best when we work together, and you can't really know which one. And sometimes I don't remember. Dotun even changes my dialogue sometimes, and I can't even remember, like, wait, did I write that, or did Dotun
Did I
change my
write
dialogue?
I do want to say there was something I came across in another interview that I thought was super awesome. I don't remember which of you said this, but you try to keep secret elements of the story from each other to maintain an element of mystery to be discovered in future issues. It sounds like that happens in a number of ways if you're changing dialogue in each other. But the thing is, you know, I just had Brian Michael Bendis on the podcast, and we talked about his relationship with like Michael Ivan Oming and like David Mack and all these different creators. David Mack, who did an excellent cover for Akogun #1.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is there's a number of different levels of collaboration when it comes to comics. But one of the ones that I think really does materially change is when you're working with a friend, like an actual friend that you know you can trust. And like that was the case with Bendis and Oming and with Mac. And it's the case for the two of you where it's not just, you know, before you were collaborators, you were friends. And I imagine that changes your process quite a bit.
Definitely.
Yes, it does. Yeah, Dotun sometimes will just send a page and just keep quiet, and it might be 3 pages later. I say, you didn't notice that, did you? I was like, what am I supposed to notice? You know, and sometimes it doesn't tell me to like the book is printed and stuff, and it's like, go back to this page, check this corner and stuff like that. Like, oh my god, yeah. So he did that a lot. Like even in his panel layout, which I didn't notice. I'm going to spoil it for people. He didn't want me to spoil it. Anytime there's a god in a scene, the corners of the top and the bottom panels have this like little indentation, and other panels have regular ones. So he has been doing that. So that means if there's a scene and you don't even see a god, and you suddenly see that structure change, that means a god was in that scene, and then things like that.
Hey, Tom Holland, you know you just spoiled it, and you're in trouble because now you can't use that. You can't use that tool anymore.
Poor
I
Tom
can use
Holland. Poor Tom Holland. He's a shorthand for people who spoil stuff too much. My God.
Yes.
That poor guy. Okay, so really quick, we're just going to go through this really quick just because I feel like it's necessary to bring up. You mentioned this earlier. My Grandfather Was a God was a webcomic the two of you did together. Tom Brevoort read that, and that's how you ended up working at Marvel, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
On Moon Knight, Black, White, and Blood.
But I mean, that was kind of like from there. It was Avengers Unlimited.
Yeah.
It was funny. This is a weird thing. I have this memory that just like you emailed me. You're like, oh, did you? In case you don't remember us, and I was like, I remember where I was when I saw that you two were working on Moon Knight because I saw that and immediately emailed the two of you. I was on a beach in Hawaii, and I was like, I gotta tell them this is amazing. Oh my God, they're working together on a Marvel book, but. I mean, that's the thing that I think is interesting is so you did that. My Grandfather Was a God led to working at Marvel because Tom Brevoort reached out to you. And then I Am Iron Man actually led to you first connecting with Oni Press, right?
Yes.
Because Hunter Gordonson read that and was like, I got to know these guys.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. I mean, like, it's an interesting thing how, like, this is diminishing sounding, but it's every project you do is like a business card and it gets you out there and it helps people, like, discover who you are. But let me do the intro for Akogun. It's your new project, Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods, which is the new Oni Press series with colorist D. Cunniff and letterer Hassan Otsman El How, who I just want to say is, like, a perfect addition to your mix. Hassan is such a good letterer, and like, his lettering has the exact type of like spice and energy I think this book really needed, and it's just great. Anyways, here's the solicit. In an age thought forgotten when man, monster, and the divine all strode the earth, a lone warrior emerges to test the immortality of the cruel gods who would deal destruction with impunity. He's a one-man reckoning that stands in defiance of his divine masters with a sword in hand and a thirst for god blood. His name, Akogun the Brutalizer. So how did first connecting with Oni lead to this project? Because from what I understand, they pitched you on something, right?
Yes. I think Hunter gets into Oni. He wanted to plan some like launch books, like 5 books that was going to launch like 2024. And so he wanted them to be of different genre and stuff. So when he reached out to us, I'm not even sure why he thought that, because I Am Iron Man is like the furthest thing from Akogun. And he said he wants a Black barbarian story, basically, like a barbarian story from our perspective. It's like, yeah, go. And the odd thing is we were planning to pitch something like that to something like my Grandfather Was a God. So we're like, okay, I really don't just want to do a Conan with dark skin. I really don't want to do that. So we had to like dig deep into like Yoruba mythology and try to see what are the equivalents of like sword and sorcery from the Yoruba mythos, and then so we now pitch that back to them, and they liked it. They also did some concept art and stuff like that, and they were sold on it. And that's basically how we started. Funny enough, it wasn't as crazy as the Marvel thing, because the Marvel thing was more crazy because we started drawing a page or two, and then Marvel said we should stop because they're trying to like file some documents and they won't be able to do business with us because we're in Nigeria, and Nigeria doesn't have a work treaty with the US. And we're like, wait, are we going to lose this? Are we going to lose it? They're like, stop drawing. I'm like, shit. And it went on for like months.
And then we told them to give whatever we're supposed to get to charity.
Yeah, we said, okay, do you know what? If the problem is paying us, if you can't legally pay us, do you know what? Okay, what if you do the work for free, or the money you give it to charity? They're like, sorry, it doesn't work that way. We have to have like a record that this person did this job and they got paid. And like, damn, like we're going to lose this job. So that's when we now found the loophole of, oh, they shouldn't hire us as individuals. They should hire us as a company. So technically, when we work with Marvel, they're hiring Collectible Comics, not Dotun and I.
Oh, that is a much nicer solution than like you not getting any of the money, to be honest. But I mean, that is smart workaround. That's great. So it seems like the general idea, the barbarian idea, was something that you were interested in story-wise, even if it wasn't like the Conan flavor. But you had this pitch for a pitch. And Dotun, I saw in an interview the two of you did with AIPT that your goal was to, and I quote, yes, and the Conan / barbarian concept, and that you wanted to build on it and find something that makes your take different than the rest. It's funny, that was like something I just talked with Kieran Gillen about. It was like a phrase I'd never really heard of before then, the yes and of it all. What was your path to making it your own, and how did that yes and of it all guide you?
So like Murewa said about not wanting to make it a dark-skinned Conan, we saw where Hunter was coming from. We really liked the idea, and we held on to that and
Added our flavor to it.
so the and to what Hunter presented
Was just basically
going back to our roots, Yoruba mythology, the things we like to see, anime, manga, manhwa, all that. And at the core of it all is the mythology that is, at the center of our culture. So we picked some of our favorite stories, our favorite gods, the gods that would be most visually interesting, gods that have like the craziest backstories, and what's this protagonist in the middle of all that madness. It is similar to Conan in a way, but this character is so different. He's not a warrior, he's not a king, he's none of that. He's just a simple hunter that has been arrested by guilty and vengeance, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we saw that the target audience that Hunter was going for was like that Conan fan base, and the fan base that they have this belief in masculinity. So like, okay, what does masculinity really mean at its core? Not just the old trying to be brutish and stuff, like true masculinity. And we're like, okay, if we look at in the history of what is defined as masculinity, it's about duty. It's about duty, your duty to the village, your duty to your family, your duty to people around you, yet putting other people's needs before your own, and that sacrificial thing. You're like, yeah, that is true masculinity. And then, so that's what we really put in the story, is about duty. And at the same time, we try to make sure that all the characters have nice abs and muscles.
We're carrying guns.
Yeah. I did like that in another interview you did, somebody was asking about like, figuring out the right answers for the gods. And I think it was you, Murewa, where you said you just went with whichever is more badass and exciting to work with. And that's the thing. See, here's the thing I really love about this book. I told you both that I really love this book, and I'm going to get into some specific things later. But one thing I love about this is it both feels very smart and very personal, but also like we were talking about with Junie earlier, where it's like you went with the decision that brought the most joy and entertainment out of you as storytellers. Like, this is your version of this type of story to the absolute max, where it's like, here's the thing I really love. I love Ogun's dog mount made of liquid metal, like the T-1000 from Terminator 2.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. Like, I saw that, and like when it, like he flies in on it and then he goes into battle and it just shifts into being armor on him. Like, that was like God's times manga times insanity. And I just thought it was like the coolest thing. And like, I don't know, like that's the type of thing that I think is really cool about comics is people say the only like limitation is your imagination. And that is true, but also how much imagination you're willing to put in is based off of what you think people will accept or what you are willing to push people to accept. And turning a dog like mount liquid metal thing into armor was just like rad, and like a lot of people wouldn't went that far. You went that far, and it rocks because of that. And that's just, I don't know, a microcosm for the entire book.
Yeah, they're like little things, like the fact that Obatala is a drunk god, and that's because when I was growing up, like my favorite movie was Jackie Chan's Drunken Master, and you just like the fact of someone that is badass and just always drinking and stuff like that, and he has a little Joker vibes from Batman, and and there's some gods that are like obvious ones that if any other Nigerian was telling, they would use those characters. We're going to use some of them in the future too. But things like Shango and stuff like, let's go with the oddly interesting ones. Like, Ogun's the god of metal. Let's see him use metal in that way. And just it's a weird footnote in Ogun's backstory that he likes dogs. And like, why would you just like dogs? Like, what's the context here? And I'm like, you know what? How do we make the metal? How do you put the metal and the dog thing together? You know what? Yeah, he has a metal dog, and so different stuff like that. And the mythology is weird, and we tried leaning into it and everything. And I wish you would see like some pages that Dotun sending me right now. In some of our favorite Marvel stories are like the cosmic stuff, like especially those early cosmic stuff by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and even things that came out later. And we're going to be playing with cosmic stuff. Like in the next chapter, you're going to see the gods as they are in their own version of heaven, you get. And it's not like the typical heaven that you see clouds and stuff like that. No, it's like monumental African builds in the stars, and you're going to see how Dotun handles it. And you're like, yeah, these are the kind of stories we love. And we just pulled everything together. Like we said, we don't have any bias. Like we like Jim Zob's Conan right now. We're going to put some of the things we like in it. We like things from the 1960s by Jack Kirby. We're going to put them in it. We like things from manga. We're going to put them in it. We like some structures that Jonathan Hickman does, and we're going to put them in it. We don't like, there's no bias. And that's what I think hurts me anytime we hear people talking about comics. It's always about, oh, this era is better, this era is the best, books now are not good, blah, 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 blah. And it's all based on the time they grew up. And we over romanticize that period to a level that we stop ourselves from enjoying things from different eras. And you're like, look, comics of different eras have a special factor to them, why they are good. And let's borrow from everything without any
Prejudice.
need for any prejudice and anything for all these nostalgia specific things. Let's pick from everything and appreciate the creators we also have that are doing wonderful things. Like you said, Juni, you should be checking Juniba on YouTube, and you should be seeing tons of video analyzing his work. Like we've done necessary like videos on Rob Liefeld. Nice. Let's do some videos on some of the creators now that are doing like fantastic things.
And now, a quick word from one of our sponsors. Zoop is the new home for creator-owned crowdfunding, and they are doing some exciting new things in the space. Be sure to join the Horde of Vault Comics crowd-building campaign. Barbaric Born in Blood #1 is free to all who sign up, and the more fans who sign up, the more items get unlocked for everyone. Also, if you ever want to own a piece of Zoop, now you can. They're running an equity crowdfunding campaign where your contribution will get you shares in the company, as well as other perks. Visit republic.com/Zoop to support and become an investor in Zoop. Stay tuned for more exciting announcements about new features and new projects, such as the upcoming campaigns from the likes of Adriana Mello, Christian Ward, and the live campaigns by Paul Cornell, Chris Weston, and more. For creators looking to crowdfund your project, Zoop is currently open for submissions. Email them at hello@wearezoop.com to start a campaign. And now, back to the show. The funny thing is, I grew up in the 90s, and I loved the 90s, but I also am aware of the fact that in a lot of ways it was like the worst time in comics from a creativity and a quality standpoint. But I do think it's interesting. It's like, I kind of look at, when you're creating, it's like you can like look at it like a giant menu, and there's the different eras in there and everything like that. You can just pick and choose which parts of the menu you like and use whatever feels right. And I think that was reflected in your work. But I did want to ask you two, when you're talking about the process, you have a lot of conversations. You talk about like what the outline is. You talk about the script, blah, blah, blah. What about the art side? Like, Dotun, do you talk about like designs? Are you collaborative in that way too? Or is that fully your domain where you're like, I'm going to come up with what Ogun's mount looks like, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that?
Not really. Most of the things I do are run by Murewa. The designs I sent to him, like I sent him a sketch today, basically changing the script for that page. And it was like, fine. Yeah. I was like, fine. So long as we're thematically on the same page and the story continues, we check some vital things, and that works. And sometimes I might even change the designs because we're looking far into the subsequent episodes where there'll be a fight scene, and we're like, okay, what if we change this to this because of mobility and or because we want to make it feel or want to hide his hands until we reveal that his hands are six-fingered or something, you know. So I run everything by him. He runs things by me too. So we're really like a true collaboration. I might do one or two things. Without telling him, and I doesn't agree. I might change it back. We might have a debate about it. I mean, this happens everywhere with everybody, every collaboration. We might have a debate about it. We might argue a little about it. No. I want this to happen later. But I did this because of this. I think his argument is stronger. I might change it. I might not, you know, and sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So yeah, that happens too. And sometimes I just drop Easter eggs here and there for him just to keep things interesting. You know, everything is just linear. I do this, I send to you, you check it out. What if we come back and we laugh about something I hit somewhere or something you hit somewhere? So we try to do that. So.
Or you just sneak it in like the corners of the panels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it just depends on the situation. There are some times I'm writing a script and all I can hear is the dialogue. I don't see anything. Like I can't see the visual, nothing. And I often put it in script for him, like, look, you know what? Freestyle. I just freestyle it. And it comes back with these powerful visuals. And that's the issue I'm having with this script I'm writing currently. Sometimes I don't see it and I'm like, man, I don't know this artist yet. So I like force myself to like just put something there. Yeah, but with Dotun, I just say, no, you know what, freestyle it. And I just see the dialogue. And there's sometimes the visuals come very strongly. Like, I think when we're talking, we're always saying that Obatala was supposed to be a giant. You get that came with the story. Like, Obatala is supposed to be like super tall. Yeah, and all that came with the story, you know. And sometimes, you know, Dotun just put a scar here. I think, yeah, he was doing like some artwork for a character. We're not gonna say the character with a scar. And I'm like, you know what? Remove the scar. Let's see the character without the scar. I'm going to write the story behind that scar, and the person will get that scar at this issue, and moving forward in the story, that scar now becomes the design, you know. So things like that we play off. So that's just his design alone has affected the story. Sometimes the story will affect. So it's a lot of back and forth, and you know, sometimes we even share like Pinterest boards with ourselves, like where Dotun is like storing like images that he found really, really interesting. And then I also do the same. And then it inspires my story, it inspires his art, and back and forth and things like that. So
I mentioned the colors D kind of in the letter Hassan Othman Al How. I'm curious as to how you incorporate them into the process, because you know I mentioned that page earlier with the little monster, my favorite little monster, the one that trekked for 1,000 years to find the right receptacle for revenge. But on that, it says the wetlands, and it says the desert, the forest, the savannah. It shows like the different like sections of this world. Where's the line drawn there? Is that you doing those words, Dotun, or is that Hassan?
Oh, the lettering.
Oh, sometimes the lettering feels like it's part of the art. Yeah.
That's Hassan.
Oh, that's Hassan. Okay, because a lot of times,
no, sometimes he does some too. Dotun, like the drag SFX.
Oh yeah, that I do some of my SFX. Here's the thing: when we started comics, we did everything in house between just myself and Murewa.
Yeah, we did the colors, the lettering, the cover, the book design. We did ourselves, so we're kind of used to it.
Yes, even now I would letter while I draw. Just so that I can have enough space for the letter. So I'm not punishing anybody. You can have enough space to shine, and everybody has enough space to work. So yeah, I letter first actually, and then I sketch first, then letter, then I rearrange things and see what works best.
Was it difficult to let those parts go?
Oh no. Hassan is so amazing. Hassan is just out of this world. Yeah. I don't know if you know his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I go there too. Yeah, it's just amazing. So
we insisted on having him on the project. That we're not lettering it. It has to be Hassan.
Yeah. It has to be Hassan. So yeah, so when he came on board, we were so happy. And we're so people were willing to let things go financially to have Hassan on board. We wanted Hassan so badly. So yeah, so that was not a problem for me at all. But I just later because I want to have enough space visually to tell the story and all that, you know, the whole 9 yards. Then, so your question. So sometimes, because I'm used to it, I draw my SFX sometimes. And sometimes I take it off and Hassan should do something here. I'm sure he would do something
And we
way
also,
better
I
than
also
anything
told
I
him
can
to
come.
like add his own SFX. So sometimes some are not in the script, he just adds them. I'm like, yeah, cool.
Yes.
You know?
So the caption text that you saw, that is kind of interacting with the world, with the art, that's Asan.
Okay.
And we love that too.
Yeah, we even had like a battle over at Oni. Oni felt like it was interacting too much with the artwork. We're like, yes, that's what we want.
I like that about it. Yeah, it's funny that they're like, it's interacting too much with the art. You're like, that is the point of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, that's one of the things I think is interesting is some artists, when it's like SFX or something like that, where it does interact with the art, they want it to come from them because it maintains the same line. But I do think that's one of Haas's like skills is Haas is very good at matching the look of an artist in a way that makes it feel like a whole as opposed to like,
Cohesive.
yeah, exactly. Cohesive. That's what you want. You don't want somebody to just be like, I'm going to do something crazy because I'm an artist. Screw these guys.
Sometimes we even forget like, okay, who added this SFX? Is it Dotun or us yet? So it's like it's free for all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a few more questions on the book. I did want to ask about the quote on the back of the book. I presume it's on the back of the book. I've not seen the print version yet.
Yeah, it's the back of the book.
I feel like it is an excellent mission statement both for this story and for the character of Akogun. The book ends with a James Baldwin quote on the back where it says, "The most dangerous creation of any society is the man who has nothing to lose." And that is, you know, we talked earlier about how it's kind of like, you know, it's got this like, you know, it's built on actual gods, but it also has this like manga feel. The funny thing about that line is it's so badass that it almost makes it feel like, this is a wild oversimplification. It almost makes it feel like Die Hard or like a 90s action movie or something like that. And also it's got a lot of depth to it. But what made that line such an effective mission statement for this story?
The funny thing is, we had a bunch of quotes. It was something else first. I think at first it was by Joel Cohen from the Cohen Brothers.
Nice.
We create monsters and then we don't know how to control them or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Oni Press, especially Hunter, was like, it feels strange putting like the quote from a modern day director on a story that's supposed to be has this mythic feel, and it's just like, maybe you get it, like, so like let's make it sound more this, and then he brought a bunch of ones, some by Robert E. Howard and stuff like that. And then we finally settled on this one. And so like, yeah, this one actually makes a lot of sense.
Capital DSM.
Yeah. When we're writing our stories, we usually have the theme of the story, like written boldly. Like, this is what this story is really about. And when we're telling the story, we're subtle about it, so you don't know. But we have that statement. So Oni knows that statement. So they searched a bunch of quotes revolving around that theme, and then we picked one.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. I do want to say, once again, I'm disagreeing with Oni. A Cohen brother, or Joel Cohen quote. That would have rocked. That would have rocked. I don't think people have been confused by it. Take that, Hunter, in your face.
I know.
I'm saying that. You guys aren't saying that. But, okay. Another thing that's interesting about this, and this is an Oni thing, they've been doing these oversized 50-ish page format issues where they roll them out bi-monthly and have 3 issues. That's the format that this book is coming out in. How did that change things for you as creators?
Well, we loved it.
You did?
Yeah, we loved it. When we're working in collective comics over in Nigeria, because they were, yes, print comic formats, but then we put them online. We weren't doing the vertical scroll yet. And any story was any number of page it needed to be.
Yeah.
Some stories were 8 pages and off to next month. Some stories were 12 pages. Some stories were like large stuff, like 35 pages, And you could still see it in New Men. New Men, they have like a consistent number of page. We did New Men with Action Lab. We did have a consistent number of page. They were the same price all through, but different number of pages. So when we got to Marvel and it was like 20 pages, it was a little kind of rough for me, especially. I had to like learn how to like structure everything well and keep the plotting tight and everything. And sometimes I feel at it where there's like a bunch of dialogue at like the last 3 panels trying to like catch readers up on some things. But I'm lucky that I have Dotun, because Dotun letters before he draws, like he says. So sometimes if there's a dialogue every page, it can change the camera angle. It can be like an aerial shot or something, so that there's more space around the character or something. So But when we got here and it was not like, yeah, you have as many pages as you want. We're like, thank you very much. So we could create stories like the first chapter where it's not really dialogue intensive. It's just this moody story about this guy killing monsters and stuff like that. And you can just follow the story and just enjoy how everything is happening visually. Because as well be a silent comic. And I know that I didn't sacrifice pages for some other story, some other part. So we really, really liked that. So, and then I think that's why we split everything to like 36, 36, 32, 32. But Dotun added some pages here and there and stuff like that. So, yeah. So we really liked the huge number of pages thing. And there was also the whole personal thing of, yeah, Hickman is not the only one that can work in oversized formats.
All right. Yeah. Take that, Hickman.
David is happy to hear that.
One thing I really love about this issue, and this is a funny thing, this is an extremely me thing to love. I love how you use chapter breaks in that you had this longer run, but it has 3 chapters. And the thing that it reminds me of Brian K. Vaughan in a very specific way. Brian K. Vaughan is uniquely gifted at writing final pages. And this issue has a unique attribute in the sense that you have multiple final pages to work with, because it like the way that you do it is like the reveal of Akogun himself, the truth of his birth, what his quest is all about. That was super smart because it gives you a lot of opportunities to like rev up the drama and to really play with rhythms within the story. And like when I was reading that, each time I was just like, oh my God, that was so awesome. Oh wait, there's more story. And I just kept going. And it's just, it's interesting because, yeah, I mean, like that structure just really worked. And I really love how the two of you leveraged that. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, we learned that like some years back, but through multiple creators. The first one is like in novels. Novels always have elaborate chapter pages, and we like that. So we always try putting that in our stories. Even stories that are just 20 pages, we'll put the credit page. The credit page will always have unique artwork. In most Marvel stuff, the credit page is just book design. But when we're working on Iron Man, we had to make
Or repeated art.
Or repeated art, yeah.
Yeah, or repeat that. We provided like chapter credit pages with unique art that served as like these chapter breaks and stuff like that. We also learned something from Al Ewing. I don't know if it's a deliberate thing, but something I noticed when I was reading a lot of Al Ewing books was you would get to a part in the story and you're like, wait, is this the end? And then you're like, no, there's still more pages, and you have this feeling. So he has, in one story, he has multiple climaxes. Most people try to have like one single climax in their issue, but Al usually has 2 climaxes in his stories. So where you feel like, wait, is this story about to end? And you're like, oh yeah, there's still more. So, and it's something I try adapting into my own writing as well. So where in this book we have like multiple like parts where you're like, oh, is that all? And then there's more. There's always this feeling of satisfaction from feeling like, oh, there's more, yet, and that feeling. And you get that too in an the animated series too, where at some point you're like, wait, oh, and then you move your cursor and like, oh, there's still more time. So there's always that satisfaction that comes with that. And then I think Brian K. Vaughan too in Ex Machina, he always has this elaborate build to like these credits and revelation of titles and stuff like that we kind of borrowed. So it's still going back to the old dancing with formats and trying to learn from everybody.
So like in the chapter breaks, those are all original pieces of art that you add to it. You didn't want to just repeat beats like other books, like you noted, right?
Yes. Original art.
Yes.
I like that.
We don't get paid for it. So we usually provide it like, because we have like this fixed number of pages we have to do for each, like for Marvel is 20 pages per chapter. For this one is 36, but we still do those chapter breaks for free. Like we need them. It has this extra flavor, this extra artwork, extra uniqueness to the work.
Well, yeah. I mean, I honestly think that it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with a variety of things, but also specifically like Junie, where you're doing what's right for your book, whether or not it necessarily like is the right move for other people. Because like you read this book, and if it didn't have those chapter breaks and it just read all the way through, it would make sense from a plot standpoint, but it wouldn't pop in the same way. And like, I think that was a really essential decision the two of you made. The funny thing about Al, so you brought up Al, I like one thing that he does, and you mentioned this to some degree, is he'll put like the big reveal or the big beat like 5 pages before the ending just because he likes to mess with reader rhythms. Al does another thing you mentioned. You talked about how like taking everything from like history and like incorporating whatever feels right. Al does that also really well. And like I can definitely feel that in your writing to some degree, Murewa, because it's like when you mess with reader rhythms, like the thing is expectations are made to be broken. Like comic fans, if we just read the same flavor of comic over and over, we'd be bored as hell. But like the two of you doing what you did with this book, where you really mess with rhythms, where you have like multiple final pages, that makes the read more exciting. And I don't know, it seems like you two are very focused on making sure that you just deliver the most exciting read you can.
Yeah, it was a natural. There's a deliberate part there. For example, I think there was a period where I was still working in Nigerian industry where I like took my favorite creators, I had a spreadsheet, and I was like, okay, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And I wanted to learn all their strengths and try to devote myself of all their weaknesses, math fraction, like different writers, and just trying to learn.
You really have a programmer brain. Oh my God.
Oh, he does.
How many spreadsheets have you gotten recently, Dotun? Does he send you things? Yeah. I imagine he does.
I do, and so I think I've gotten it back, and but there's some that it's just natural, like it just I have a different way of thinking or approaching things. So, but I didn't notice them until Tom Brevoort specifically said it in one of his newsletters, talking about how I have an unconventional structure to my stories, and I was like, what does it mean I have an unconventional structure? Like, I'm just writing basic stories and stuff like that. So I called Dotun, like, what does it mean? I was like, oh, dude, your structure is different. So he now explained it to me. So I was like, okay, I get it now. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start leaning into it to a certain extent. So I leaned more into it for Akogun. Like, okay, I'm going to play with that structure. The 3 chapters are like 3 puzzles, and they set in your head, not on the pages. And when it's set, you have this extra satisfaction coming from putting everything together.
Are you done with this volume? Like, have you finished scripting it?
I've finished scripting it, but Dotun hasn't finished drawing.
Dotun, you haven't?
Nope.
No. I met. It's a lot of pages. Where are you at in it?
I mean, the second.
He's still the second.
It's a lot of pages to draw. Are all the issues about this length, or are you kind of still freestyling and finding whatever the right length is?
They're about that length too.
Okay.
Yeah. 36, 32, 32. If you remove the chapter pages and stuff.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, that's, 36, 30, do you say 36, 36, 32?
No, 36, 32, 32.
Oh, okay, okay. So, yeah, that's 68, 100 pages. So, you basically, like, have 5, like, you're basically doing 5 regular length issues.
Marvel issues, yeah.
In the period of, I don't know, 6 months? Something like that? How long have you been working on this book?
Since October.
October, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because he had to do like designs and different stuff. And then Dotun's doing the covers. Project. Yeah, his covers are sick. He did covers for this book, yeah, and he also did covers for
X-Men Era of the Apocalypse.
Yeah,
those are great covers, by the way.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, and for this book specifically, he's been trying some new styles. I wish I could send you the inks for them. Like in black and white, they are crazy. So he's drawing in a slightly different style for this. So that has also like affected the speed, but it's also made it look like 10 times better.
So ultimately, though, it sounds like you have plans to make this a trilogy of 3 issues each. Like, so 3 different minis. So the next one would be Akogun, Revenge of the Gods, if I remember correctly?
Yes. Yes, Revenge of the Gods. So we're planning to make it like 3 of 3s. Yeah, you get it.
I love it.
So we're hoping this sells enough for Oni to commit to publishing the rest.
I did want to ask one last question about this. I had to ask you, Dotun, about, I don't know if this is the first time you've had this, but this is an original idea from the 2 of you. And you have variant artists bringing your original idea to life. Like you have David Mack and you have Ramon Villalobos and you have, God, who's the other person? Gray Williamson, I think?
Yeah.
Is that an interesting experience to have like an original character brought to life in that specific way? Because now you get to see how different artists would approach that sort of thing.
Absolutely. I loved everyone's take on that. Very interesting to see how another artist would, interpret your character. I really enjoyed every single artwork I've seen so far. Yeah.
Max one was very Mackie. He definitely has
And
like he goes in there. I love all the writing off to the side and everything.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing about it too is like tremendously different artists. I don't know who's on the second one, but like all three of the variants were way different, and getting to see the different styles brought to life with the character is really cool.
Yeah. So I like something I like about that is I think Scotty Young made me like that variety.
Yeah.
So how I was introduced to Scotty Young was see someone make a character that I loved and I always thought was badass, and then he makes them cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need a plush toy of this.
And I don't have toys. I don't have plush toys or anything like that. And I immediately go, like, from my guts, I wanted a plush toy of this cute character. Like, wow, how did you make that work? Then I started Googling who is Scotty Young, and then I'm on his Instagram. I'm like, wow. And then there's this other person, I keep forgetting his name. He does this cardigan thing for his cute versions of superheroes.
Is it Dan Heap?
Oh,
yes,
yeah, but Dan Hip.
Yes. Beautiful rendition. So yeah, when I saw those covers, I was like, this is not how I'll do it, but I love this. I love it a lot.
Issue 1's variants were assembled by our editor Carl Bollers over at Oni Press, and we're like, you know what, we want to like have our own input on the variant covers too. So that's why we brought a lot of especially like African guys that worked on Disney's Kizazimoto. So we bought Venus Bambisa. We just bought like various artists with like various styles, including Juniba. That's when you see the variants in issue 2, they now become like more different and different styles and stuff like that. So yeah, we were really, really excited to like work with. There's this artist from Kenya, Salim Busuru. He was part of the artists that worked on the Anatomy of Marvel. He has this African style with like masks and stuff like that. So yeah, so it was really, really fun getting to work with all the artists we've always like looked up to when we're coming up in Nigeria, and it was because we don't have that much say like variant covers when working with Marvel, but for the first time we like have that thing, and we're able to get as many people as we wanted. We even reached out to Rachel Smythe.
Oh wow,
that does the Olympus, but she was too busy, and it's really hurt us to the bone. We just wanted to have like different stuff, like let's have the low Olympus person that draws this Greek mythology draw African mythology.
That would have been really cool. That's a great idea. Wow.
Very cool.
That would have been amazing to see. Yeah, I love that. I mean, to be honest, I think variant covers are like a sales thing, but at the same time, they're reflective of your work. And so you want them to reflect what you're going for. And I love that you're doing that. And of course, you got Junior to do one. You had to get Junior to do one. It was destiny. All right. Well, to close, I did want to talk about kind of, how things are changing or have changed for you. You're on your way with Akogun, and you might have more for us or you will have more for us in the future, I hope. You've been published at several publishers now, including Marvel, including Murewa cheating on you, Dotun. Oh my God, with somebody else. Oh my God. So
sleeping on the couch tonight.
It's terrible. What do you two want for yourselves as creators now? Like, do you think your goals have evolved over the years since when you first got started?
Not really. For me, growing up and discovering comic books or movies or pop culture things that I really love, I remember having this feeling like, wow, this is amazing. Who is behind this? And it kind of made me dream, and I was arrested into this universe, into this world, into this place. It's like this movie / animation where this kid was in the library, and then I think he opened the book and then he just was swallowed up into the world. I keep forgetting the title of that movie. So I was always so invested in everything I was reading or watching, and I kept dreaming and always wanting to be these people. Super Sports on TV had this animation thing that they do during the half hours, and I always thought, who is behind this amazing thing? So I've always wanted to be one of these creators. So now that I am, I always wish that I make another child dream to want to be or do what I'm doing, or just aspire to tell their story or do something great with whatever talent they are blessed with. So that was like one of my major dreams. Like, anybody who holds my book or anything I've done, drawn, illustrated, anywhere, I hope they have this feeling of aspiration and this go-getter attitude. Okay, I'm going to do this when I grow up. I want to be like this. I want to. So yeah, I had that, and I want to be that to someone else.
Yeah, like how weird it is, it's very difficult to explain to people. Like I live in a very, very small town in Nigeria called Oshogbo, and it's if I tell people they wouldn't believe me, like what I do for a living and who we've been opportune to work with and stuff like that. I think there was a time I was taking a walk and I was taking a walk in like this kind of odd place where there were like chickens and goats and all those stuff on the road, like you see in all those movies about movies set in Africa and all those kind of things. And
rural areas.
Yeah, rural areas. And I'm like, a lot of people will not believe this is where their Marvel comics is coming from. You get and I just smiled. And I just smiled. And we're genuinely living the dream. Like our first series, like full series where we handled everything with Marvel was for like one of our favorite characters, Iron Man. You get so it's a dream come true. And some of the dreams we still have are dreams that have stayed with us. It's not changed. There are two of them that I can really say, and one of them is still being able to run our own show. And for some odd reasons, we are in communication with like 2 animation studios, and they have been begging us for scripts. And for some reason, we've not been able to like put together anything for them because we are busy with comics. And we keep feeling bad. And we're like, wait, are we burning bridges right now? These people are waiting for like scripts and stuff, but we're still working on comics. So there's that. And we want to be financially independent enough to be able to finish My Grandfather Was a God for free. We don't want people to pay for it. We want to be able to do it for people for free because that was the book that changed things for us. And it was because it was free. And a lot of people liked it. People, even though the views are small, they're like 1,000 per episode. But oddly enough, the 1,000 people are so diverse. There are people in Nigeria that were writing to us. There were people in the Caribbean, people in the US, people in the UK.
Tom Brevoort.
Exactly. People in Benin Republic, and stuff like that. We're like, so we want to get back to that comic and tell it for free and let people just enjoy it and love it. And hopefully one day also have the free time to be able to like run our own animated series. Like Gendy Tartakovsky that kind of started it all for us.
Yeah. I did, I mentioned before we started recording, I watched that interview you did with Redeemer, the school you two went to. And the interviewer, you could just tell that he had this pride about being like our person who's working with Marvel Comics. And it was interesting because like, I don't know. I mean, not to like put too much weight on the two of your shoulders, but like you're trailblazers in some ways. I mean, like not saying you're the only comic creators that have ever come from Nigeria, but at the same time, you were saying, Dotun, it's like you very well could inspire other people in your area to find a career there or a career in comics and a career in this type of storytelling. It's like, when you were a kid and you're like freeze framing Batman Beyond and drawing those you couldn't have imagined that it would lead you here. But that's the thing is like you can't control inspiration, and it seems like you're put into a position where you could be inspiring. And I think that's really cool.
Very cool.
But that is all I have for you two. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about Akogun, your careers and everything else. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel with writer Murewa Ayodele and artist Dotun Akande. You can find them on Twitter and Instagram, as well as their work in Akogun, Brutalizer of Gods at Oni Press. Big thanks to Deanna Chapman for stepping in to edit this week's episode. If it sounds better than usual, it's because of her. Love Off Panel, want to support it? Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts today and give the show a rating or review while you're at it, but 5 stars only. You can also support the show by backing it on Patreon. Find the show at patreon.com/offpanel. And when you back it on there, you get early access to each week's podcast, as well as weekly content and more. Want even more? Subscribe to my subscription comic site, Sketched, at sketch.com for long-form articles, interviews, and the rest of the site's content. You can find Off Panel and Sketched on social media by following on Twitter and Instagram at @SketchComic or following me at @SliceFriedGold. Big thanks to all my existing patrons, including John Auerbach, Dustin Weaver, Ninja Assassin Love Story Webcomic, Brandon Heyman, Aiden Hammond, Kenny Myers, JKJ Art, Faith Aaron Hicks, Yeah Comics, Ben Rowe, Cameron Brown, Jonathan Breen, Danny Ollies, Charlie Stickney, Tom Drennan, Jeremy Thomas Burke, Jared Schwab, Scott Dunn, Chip Mosher, Seth Pomeroy, James McEwen, Andrew Lehman, Christina Merkler, Scott Place, Travis Gibb, Darcy Van Polgees, Travis Schmeiser, Tom Evans, Reed Beeman, Kelly Sudaconic, Max Wood, Jeremy Lambert, Brian Holt, Near Levy, Jason Hussa, Kieran Gillen, Jonathan Kent Uratam, Henry Johnson, Django Boren, James Tynan IV, Chris Langford, Jason Wood, Tom Peachy, Ben Domstead, Rom V, Nick Walker, Patrick Coyle, Isaac Oren, Capes and Tights Podcast, Klaus Vandeven, Submed Industries, Jack Mulqueen, Carl Kerschel, Robert Masella, Elza Chartier, Luke Nakashoji, Dr. Luke, Scott Hazelwood, Canadian by Proxy, Bradley Rader, Carl Choi, Brandon DePillis, Patrick Brower, Declan Shalvey, Dan Carino, Adam Freeman, Ben Wild, Brian Klein Q, Liana Kangas, Nick Bennett, Daniel Whitfield, Susanna Polo, Reed Hinkley Barnes, Mario Tiambang, Andrew Carita, Stephen Holt, Philip Myrick, Chris Pachal, Torrin Grunbeck, Fuzz Bubbles, Christopher Todd, Transmitter Down, Waltz Comics and Books, Akil Wilson, Alex Dimitriopoulos, Terry Dodson, Wesley Giff, Sean Kirkham, Brett A. Schmidt, Jason Goodmanson, Paul Reinwan, Vita Ayala, Akil, Philip Seavey, Al Ewing, Ryan Alcock, David Kelly, Nick Polito, Matthew Groom, Jason Massey, Adam Bogart, Matthew Taylor, Nick Patera, Jacob Sorelli, Ford Gilmore, David Baraldi, Nick Hall, Bjorn Basin, John Hendrick, Ian Maxfield, Cliff Chang, Colin McMahon, Adam Highfield, Fiona Staples, Mark Abnett, Michael Shirley, Tom Barnett, Jim Demonakos, Norbert, Nick Lowe, James Kaplan, and Mission Comics and Art in San Francisco. You guys are all the best. A quick thanks to Wolfpack for letting me use their song Outro as the show's opening theme, and to Upright T-Rex Music, who wrote and performed Odd Panel's outro and ad music just for the show. Check out both their music on Spotify because it's completely delightful. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.